Greetings once again from Vienna, Austria, here at the Freedom Rally, taking place in the very heart of Vienna. We're surrounded by speakers and who include the doctors, the scientists, the media professionals, the activists from all across the world. There's a huge Canadian contingent here today. Many from the trucker rally have flown over to be here in solidarity in Austria. There's lots of protesters here who are going to be going on to the Netherlands to support the farmers. And it's very interesting at this time of year now. We're in September, looking back to where we were in 2021, 2020. I've just spoken to Dr. Heiko Schörning, who, not far from this date in 2020, at the march in London, standing by my side, was arrested. I don't know if those of you following the content all the way since the beginning may have remembered watching that live as Dr. Heiko Schörning was arrested at Speaker's Corner, having given us talk, having his talk interrupted at Trafalgar Square. We've just been speaking backstage. I'll be speaking to him on camera later today, nearly coming up to the 2-year anniversary of when that occurred. And we've all shared stories, our protest stories for the last couple of years, and everything from the police brutality to the inhumane way people have been treated. Just really shocking times that we must never forget, and we must also make sure that we never go through this again. So my plans this afternoon are to capture footage from the speakers on stage. I'm speaking myself later on from the stage. Some of the music, some of the entertainment. I want to speak to some of the speakers today. I've just seen Dr. Pierre Corey in the backstage area. There's a whole range of eminent doctors and scientists who have been fighting the fight for the last couple of years, who have flown here to Austria to be part of the Better Way conference, which took place yesterday, following the Better Way media conference 2 days prior to that. So it's a full program of events, and tomorrow morning we've got an international press conference that will be broadcast live, including mainstream media will be attending this, followed by a private meeting tomorrow. So it's a full 4 days that we've been at full on here in Austria. I'm looking forward to having some fun. I always enjoy these events. I always enjoyed speaking to people, hearing their story, and hearing about what's going on. So I'm making the beeline here. Would you be willing to share your story on camera about your experience in Canada? Sure. Welcome. So Sherry, it's really been great to meet you this weekend.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what's been going on in Canada.
Well, our Prime Minister or our dictator is actually threatening to lock us down again, so we don't know what's going to happen. But it's Europe is a lot freer than we are. You're starting to see people wear more masks again, so I don't even know if the Prime Minister will have to make rules about it. I think the citizens are going to start policing each other, so that's a little bit unnerving.
Yes, and tell us a little bit how you got started. I was just sharing with the audience, reflecting back on September 2020. I was just talking to Dr. Heiko Schörning, who came to London. He was arrested at a protest, 2021. Now we're in 2022, but what got you started on this journey?
Well, first of all, I have 3 adult children, and 2 of my children had encephalitis after normal vaccines in the early 90s. So I understood Big Pharma and the dangers of these injections. And so at first, actually, I was pretty naive. I mean, I didn't believe in the virus, but I saw what they were doing to small business owners, and my background is in sales, so I was really concerned about that. So I got involved with Adam Skelly, and he had 4 barbecue restaurants, and he decided to open against the mandates. And anyways, it turned into a 3-day showdown with our mayor, the premier. I mean, it was absolutely like nothing you would ever see on Canadian soil. They had horses, they locked him down, they put him in jail, they terrorized his family, literally. And so I literally woke up then, or I grew up actually, because I saw the media create the story in front of me, because I was there, so I knew the story because I was behind the story, and it wasn't an exaggeration. They created it. And so after that, I got involved with Bright Light News, who's down here with us, and I got involved with Fearless Canada, and then after that I was introduced to some people. We started Take Action Canada, so it's an activist group in Canada. I then went down to Ottawa, and I went down for 7 days initially, just to see Canadian history, and I saw that we needed
For those at home, you're referring to the convoy.
Right.
Yes.
So we had some, it was like in the fall there was supposed to be a convoy and it didn't happen. So we weren't actually sure if it was going to happen, because this movement was very organic. Even though there were people that people call leaders, it was really just organic. And so I went down there with some Vlad from Hugs Over Masks. You probably know who he is. And we had a room down there, or I created a suite down there, and we had a meeting space because there was no place for us to meet. We had 2 other hotels where there was strategies going on and other things that were happening. But this room was a room for doctors, scientists, journalists, activists, anybody to come. They met each other and they strategized. So I was there for 33 days, and it was life-changing. I mean, everybody will tell you that within 24 hours, there was such an energy there, like something you can't imagine unless you experienced it. Within 24 hours, if you needed something or someone, it showed up. And it was difficult when they had to leave, but they were beating the women. I mean, they went after the women in the front lines, and but not once did we fight back. They got on their knees, they prayed, they sang "O Canada." So, and that was millions of people. Even though they took our money, people came and gave money. So everybody got money that needed money down there. And then I drove home, and I went, I don't belong here anymore. And so I drove to the U.S. and met with the American Convoy, and the North American Unity Tour, which is a border meetup, was created, and we started Take Action USA. And then I was invited to Brazil and here, because now what we're doing is bringing everybody together globally.
Absolutely.
You know, because that's where we have to be next.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing, Shoy. I'd like to talk to you some more later on, but it looks like we're just getting started here, so we're gonna capture some of the opening talks as we get started. Maria's on stage. I'm just going to take us backstage so we can have a look from the side of the stage. Hopefully we can see from the, if I can get in this way, I may have to walk around the other side. Bear me a moment. I'm going to see if I can capture our early speeches. Bear me a minute here.
Talking about the adverse events we have seen today here in Vienna with a little bit of rain. But what are those adverse events against what has been happening over the past 2 years, both in terms of science and health, as well as in terms of all the other propaganda we have seen? They have tried to take us down, they have tried to harm us in any way, corporations that have not been fulfilled or whatever. We are going forward, we are not against, we are for the better way. We will adjust our program. There will be no march today. We will have our short and powerful program here, and at 5:30 there will be a live stream from a different location, but there will be a live stream going out with all the speakers in more detail, which will be following here now in brevity. The first speaker has been introduced, and there was the applause you've heard just a moment ago for Professor Dr. Ulrike Gero, a political scientist from the University of Bonn, who has been speaking out courageously over the past 2 years. Ulrike.
Okay, so we've got our first speaker coming on stage now. I'm gonna see if I can get backstage so we can actually watch this on the side of the stage. Bear me a moment.
Ja, also ich bin erst sehr froh, wieder in Wien zu sein. Das ist eine Stadt,
let's see what we
die
can
ich
do.
tatsächlich 5 Jahre lang sehr geliebt habe, und deswegen bin ich froh, hier zu sein.
Go,
und
go,
danke
go.
für den Applaus. Ich möchte ganz
Here we
kurz
go.
sein. Ich muss um 15:15 Uhr den Zug nach Bonn nehmen.
Here we go. We'll start from this side, and then I'll make it up to the side of the stage shortly.
Ich bin Politikwissenschaftlerin und ich möchte nicht, dass legitime Kritik delegitimiert wird. Wir sehen an verschiedenen Prozessen, wir sehen in verschiedenen Ländern, in Frankreich, in Deutschland, in Österreich, dass wir inzwischen Gesetze haben, die im Grunde das, was das normale Bürgerrecht ist, nämlich sozialer Protest, Versammlungen und so weiter, dass das legitim bleibt und nicht delegitimiert wird.
Okay, for those of you at home, the first speech in German. I'm sure some of you will be able to understand the speech. Many of the speeches will likely be translated, so we'll rejoin in a moment once the translation takes place. If so, apologies to my German-speaking friends at home who are enjoying that. We'll come back shortly. Most of our audience is English-speaking, so we'll come back in a moment. The men in black are here. I'm going to capture the moment here.
This is an alien movie.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Would you like to say a few words to camera about why you're here in Austria?
Why I'm here in Austria? Let's talk. Why am I here? Hey, folks, Dr.
Ryan
Cole here.
Yeah.
I'm in Austria because the world matters. This is an issue of humanity. We're here just to support about freedom. Freedom is the oxygen of the soul, and it's just beautiful to see people express themselves and want to live free, free from the dictates of crazy politicians and corrupt public health officials. We're here with the real science. We're here with the real truth, and just want to get back to normal life. We want people to just get back to not living in fear and protect the children. You know, that's the key. We've got a gene product around the world that is extremely harmful. Goal of all of us is to stop that, continue to share the science, and just prod people back into their normal state of happiness.
Yes, I was reflecting some of the biggest protests we've seen started in September 2020 in the UK. Seems so long ago, but here we are 2 years later. What got you started on this journey, particularly when it comes to COVID?
Truth. I'm a hardcore scientist, trained at the Mayo Clinic. I've been in the lab for 26 years, seen over 500,000 patients diagnostically personally in my career. The moment this all started, I knew it was a fraud. Yes, the virus exists. Yes, people got sick. We ignored treatments. We went off with an experimental shot, harming people. This was preventable from day one, and agencies took advantage of this for their own purposes, and it's just frustrating to see so many people that just got duped. And I'm here to bring clarity to the minds of people, and with kindness and with science.
Yes. Now, we've heard so many wonderful talks over the last couple of days where a lot of that science has been shared, but it's been fascinating speaking with people like yourself and the sacrifices you've had to make. You're traveling the world, leaving your family behind. How has it been for you over this last couple of years? What sacrifices have you had to make?
I've lost 75% of my business because of my, quote, unprofessional behavior for sharing data and science. The family understands why I'm doing what I'm doing, so I have support at home. I have support of my community back home. And yeah, sacrifices. I haven't been home but maybe 9 weekends in a year. And wherever I can go and share the truth, I'll go. Because I don't like seeing my fellow human beings harmed by something that they don't need.
Yes. And what's your prognosis beyond here? What do you think winter holds for us?
I'm optimistic in the sense that thankfully a lot of people just got a very weak, slushy vaccine that really didn't have much in it, so a lot of people are okay. I'm optimistic there. I'm optimistic that I'm here with other physician colleagues who are figuring out ways to treat those who have been vaccine injured. I'm optimistic in the sense that the virus has faded for a period of time now. We can strengthen ourselves and be ready for the next round of whatever comes. Smart doctors will always have treatments. You don't have to wait for some rescue shot of some sort. And so I'm optimistic because brilliant minds of the world that never would have met have been brought together because of this issue. And because of that, it brings hope to me as a scientist, hope to me for humanity, hope that we can help people and they don't have to be dependent on big systems.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan Cole. It's a pleasure to be with you and good to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're backstage now. There's many of the speakers are here. Just Tess Laurie's here. Dr. Kat Lindy, would you like to say a few words about why you're here?
Hi everyone. So I'm here with World Council for Health from United States with Ryan, and we're here just to show United Front. I think we're all struggling to the same things, and it's important for all of us to connect and to share our stories and to figure out how to be resilient going forward, because it seems like things are getting better, but I have a feeling they're not. So I think we need to keep on just doing our job.
It's good to see you wrapped up warm. It's getting colder in here. And last time I saw you wrapped up this warm was on stage in America. There was a big speech you gave at a huge congress in America. Could you tell us a little bit about the protests and the events? You know, I'm here for the first time in an overseas protest. I know you've traveled a lot, but what's the resistance been like in America in terms of your own involvement?
Well, actually, you guys, especially UK, has done an amazing job. I wish we were as united as you are. I really wish so. The problem is we have 50 states. We're all under different pressures. So I'm in Texas. It's really a free state. It's kind of like Florida. People don't feel all of these mandates. And then when we went to DC, that was amazing because we were at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. There were about 50,000 people, all races, all ages coming together, you know, conservatives and Democrats, everyone. And it was all about the mandates and the fact that freedom matters. And I think, you know, for Americans, they haven't realized, in Europe, people know what it means not to have freedom. We had so many wars and different things like that. Americans are totally naive to that. So these mandates have hit them very hard. And it was great to see people there. But since then, we haven't had many protests like you. And I kind of wish we would wake up, because we are not awake to the unity, to the strength of protest. I love watching you guys. I always usually watch you, going along in the protest and interviewing people. Yes. And the energy is amazing. So actually being here in Vienna is kind of nice to see that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I hope you'll speak some more later on today. So we're here backstage at Vienna, the Freedom Rally taking place today. having some conversations with some of the speakers backstage. Do you want to share a few words about why you're here and tell us about what's been going on back at home?
Yeah.
If you introduce yourself first and tell us a bit where you come from.
Sure, Dan Suter, I'm from New Zealand. I've been working on a website called Nuremberg. So it's a bit of a world first. I've emailed all of the 977 vaccination centres with a cease and desist written by the World Council for Health. I've just tried to be reasonable, tried to be logical, created a little bit of an audit trail so that all the politicians in New Zealand really can't deny that they were given the information. And I think it's very clear, we're seeing this 40% increase, deaths 18 to 65. It's a 1 in a billion year event, apparently, by statistics alone. We're talking like a meteor or something like that. And I just think we should all be concerned. And so I'm here just to talk about that a little bit, but also just to connect with all these amazing people, that you've been interviewing.
And how's life been in New Zealand? Obviously, some of the what we see as the pressure centres have been New Zealand, Australia, Canada.
Yeah. I think relative to Australia, we saw a lot more police violence.
Yes.
New Zealanders are quite compliant. We've got a lot of sheep there, and we're often called sheeple. But what's really interesting? We had a very high vaccination rate for the first and second shot, sort of around the 90% supposedly. But by the third shot, it dropped down to 30%.
Right.
So I think, we've had a lot of pressure and it's hurt.
Yes.
But the more you get hurt, the quicker you wake up.
Yes. And are the governments U-turning now? I mean, we're hearing stories that things are changing and it's...
Yeah, certainly. So they came out the other day and dropped all the mandates.
Yeah.
There's still kind of the odd mask here and there, hospital settings and that kind of thing. But certainly they have heard the voice of the people.
Yes.
I looked at Jacinda Ardern the other day. She did an interview on the AM show. Yes. 1,300 comments. I scanned through the first 200 or 300. I could not find one supporting her.
Wow.
So this is
changing.
Yeah, and talk about direct democracy, and we're kind of hoping for this voting system.
Yes.
Have a look at Facebook.
Yes.
They don't. This happens real time. They don't have time to edit it.
Yes.
It's just a fact. So I just say, let's just open our eyes
Yes.
to what's going on. And the politicians say they always listen to the people, they represent the people.
Yes.
Let's see the proof of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for all the good work you're doing, and great to see someone from New Zealand here. We've got people from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all over the world. New Zealand. Look, we've been talking over the weekend. Would you share your story with us on the film?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what got you involved in the movement.
So my name's Sue Gray. I'm a lawyer in New Zealand. I'm a mother. I've got a background in science. I've got a double major in biochemistry and microbiology. I've worked in the past for the government, but also for a lot of small businesses and private and community interests, really. And for the last probably 20 years, I've been specialising in what I call emerging issues. So complicated, ethical, environmental, human rights, medical issues. And so when COVID came along, it fits the bill, and there were a lot of red flags.
Yes.
Right from the start. So I was sitting at my home office, and I normally go out paddleboarding or something to just clear my head, and it's like, no, we're not allowed to go paddleboarding. I mean, the water's about 1 metre deep. Why can't I go paddleboarding? And I started to look at the law, and I went, hang on a minute, they're telling us that we can't go out, but actually there's nothing in the law that says that we can't. They're making it up. They're making it up, and they're intimidating us. And so then I really just got more and more into it. I wrote to the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I wrote to the Attorney General who's in charge of the law. I wrote to our local Chief Police Officer. And I said, look, you're misleading us, telling us we can't do things. I'm going to go paddleboarding. And if you think I'm wrong, you tell me why.
Yes.
And they didn't.
Yes.
So I went out. And that was really, for me, a breaking point to say, well, we've actually got to take back our own power.
Yes.
And so then I went on and I've done 2 High Court challenges against the government relating to COVID. We won the first one. But just when I was announcing that we'd won it, the government announced that they were going to be doing an emergency law change overnight, and so within 24 hours they changed the law. And it's actually, they described it as a technical change, but it's actually a really major change, because the reason that our regulator MedSafe had only given what's called provisional consent for the Pfizer vaccine because they weren't satisfied it was safe or effective, and they weren't satisfied that the benefits exceeded the risk, right? Now think about that, that's pretty major. Meanwhile, the government announces that they're rolling it out to everyone in New Zealand over 16.
So why would you roll out something you don't know if it's safe and effective or if the benefits exceed the risks to everyone in your population over 16? So we challenged under the law, because the law for provisional consent was that you can only roll out with provisional consent for the restricted treatment of a limited number of patients. And we said everyone in New Zealand over 16 is not a limited number of patients, which the courts agreed with quite sensibly. Of course they agree, you have to agree with that. And that's what the government then took away, the restriction on only a restricted treatment of a limited number of patients, and said that was just a technical change. So what is exposed is our government actually has no respect for the law, they have no respect for science, they have no respect for human rights, they have no respect for the people of New Zealand. And when we've come up with more and more things to do, so we went to Parliament when the Canadian convoy went to their Parliament, and it started as just a small event and it became enormous. I drove from halfway down the North Island to Parliament, and every small town there were people standing with their umbrellas and what we call gumboots, I think you call them Wellingtons, in the rain, handing out apples and drinks and coffees and things, just thousands and thousands of people cheering everybody on. There'd be just a gate at the end of a farm, and there'd be the family sitting on the back of their little farm bike, waving and cheering for hours while the people were working hard. We had a huge public support. We got to Wellington and it was amazing. People, the trucks and cars just parked in the street, and while the security guards from Parliament were wondering what to do, a whole lot of others went in and set up their tents. And before anyone knew it, we had tents all over Parliament grounds, and we ended up staying for 23 days.
Amazing.
And we had the best party in New Zealand, probably the best party New Zealand's ever seen. At that time, we had these discriminatory restrictions where if you weren't vaccinated, you weren't allowed in a cafe, you weren't allowed a haircut, you weren't allowed to do all of these things. And yet suddenly there we all were on the front steps of Parliament, and of course there were lots of people, because people that had lost their jobs because of the discriminatory mandates, all our health workers, our teachers, our police officers, our defence force, our prison staff, our border workers, and lots of other people had lost their jobs if they weren't vaccinated. So they all came to Wellington, with thousands of people basically having a big party in Wellington, until the police turned up at 6 o'clock one morning and with their riot gear. So, the people were camping or staying in camper vans on the street, get up in the morning, what's that noise? Oh, it's a helicopter flying around with this big kind of woof, woof, woof noise and camera. It turned out they had the LRAD, the sound audio thing that causes ear damage and confusion. And then you look out the side, and then hundreds of police storming down the street with their just riot gear on. So up against people that had just got up in the morning with their t-shirts and jandals on, and just smashing everything up. It was the most disgusting display of policing I've ever seen, made worse because the Police Commissioner of New Zealand, Andrew Costa, had previously announced on national television that if the police went in, people would be hurt. So they knew that people would be hurt, and they did it anyway. It was a disgraceful day. We actually heard the day before that there were a lot of signs that the police were planning something. And we had a meeting pre-arranged with the police at 1:30 the day before to discuss with them what they were planning and to try and make sure people stayed safe. And they cancelled the meeting 5 minutes before the meeting. And then we got more information, and we said, look, there are a lot of families, little children, babies there. We have to warn people that we think the police are planning something. So I was nominated to be the one that went up on stage to warn the people. And of course, you've got a whole range of people, some determined not to go home, come what may, and others with little children or very elderly, people in their 80s and 90s were there, like all sectors of society. And so it was quite a carefully pitched warning saying, look, we don't exactly know what's happening, but there are a lot of signs that the police are intending to do something. Now, just before I went on stage, one of the protesters who'd been liaising with the police said, look, I don't believe the police are going to do anything, because I've been talking to them all the time. They promise me they'll keep me informed, and they haven't told me anything. So I said, look, can you just ring them and check? So he rang the police officer, the liaison officer, and checked. And they said, no, we're not planning anything. And so I had to go on the stage with these really mixed messages, warning, we think that they're going to do something, but we're not exactly sure. And then sure enough, 6 o'clock in the morning, they just came in huge numbers. And you know, at the time, well, I was so confused, but we had everybody very well trained to stay calm, stay peaceful, sing the national anthem, stand united together, but don't fight, don't do anything aggressive. And people were very good like that, and also to video everything you could, because that's evidence, you know. So I was walking along like this, as close as we are, recording all of the police numbers. And then maybe 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 didn't have a police number, which is illegal in New Zealand to wear a police uniform without a police number. And so I'm asking them, where's your number? You're breaking the law having a police uniform with no number. Now, of course, they wouldn't answer me, but this is the thing. When the police break the law, and condone. That's tyranny. And what do they expect the people to do when the people lose trust in the law?
Absolutely.
So it was really just the most, I think a lot of us suffered a bit of kind of post-traumatic stress at the time because we didn't believe what we'd seen. You know, watching the police sitting on a young man's head and shoving his head and neck, punching an old man, dragging women out of the crowd. It was just disgusting.
Is there any legal recourse or remedy to that type of behaviour?
Yeah, there is, and look, we're looking at all sorts of options. We're still been trying to get the information out of the police, because it's always good to get the information first. They've been procrastinating every way they can. My friend who had a fractured hip, he was in hospital for 6.5 days getting an emergency hip replacement, and it really took him 6 months since then to rehabilitate. So, you know, it's been hugely traumatic. So I'm sure he will be filing some kind of challenge against the police, but the police won't tell us who the officer was who did it. You know, they're just covering from each other. And even the Police Complaints Authority have come back and said, oh no, we're not going to investigate individual complaints, only the overall complaint. So again, they're covering for each other at every layer. It's corrupt. It's total corruption, covering for each other.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for everything you're doing. It's so amazing to be here and meeting people from all over the world who've come here for the Better Way conference and today the Freedom Rally. It's important that we share these stories, not only with each other but with the world, because it's these times we cannot forget what we've been through, and we must seek justice.
We have to learn, and we have to learn how to deal with the abuse by the system, because if the system is not doing what it's there to do, it's made itself redundant. And we have to create alternatives that actually do work for the people, for humanity, and for our future. It's been just amazing hearing all the stories from people here. Like, so many stories are so similar. It's almost scary to hear how similar they are, but it's also really empowering, and meeting everybody and learning and seeing what so many people are doing so much to stand up and fight.
Yes, indeed.
The people power will get it in the end, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're going to go check out what's happening on stage. Thank you. I'll see you later on. Thank you. All right, so yeah, some fascinating stories too there from New Zealand. As I said, we'll be continuing to get conversations with the medical experts, the speakers, as well as the activists from all across the world who are here to share their story with us all here. It's really quite a fascinating time to be alive. Yeah, okay.
We are many doctors from almost 40 countries: Spain, Portugal, Italy, France, UK, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Switzerland,